dimensioning circles and cylinders is a bit different. We're going to learn a couple new line types for this one. So on the previous side, we learned a lot of linear dimensions, okay? Distance, location, and so forth. But when it comes to circles, we really want to point out and draw attention to these different shapes and sizes. Okay, so we're going to be using a different kind of line called a leader line. And what these are meant to do is lead your eyes to the round surface, okay? That's a hard cut to make, and drill size and location are very important. So we're going to use something called a leader line. Now, we can use the three most common angles, 45, 30, and 60 degrees. But you can make the leader lines at almost any angle that you wish. The trick is you're going to be wanting it to point directly to the center point, but what's going to happen is you are going to draw a line up with the arrow touching the circle, but if I continued that line down, it would go through the center point. Okay, it would then level out, okay, with a horizontal line. Okay, and finally, we would use our lettering guide. When we're going to actually do dimensionings, you need to use your lettering guide, and I still go with the 1/8 inch lettering size. Okay, when we're dimensioning circles, we use diameter. When we're dimensioning an arc, okay, we would use radius. So I'm going to be getting the diameter of this cylinder, so I'm going to use the diameter symbol, which is a circle with a line that goes all the way through it, okay, from one end to another. That gives me the total diameter, saying the distance between this end and that end. So I'm going to take that measurement, and it's 2 inches, so the diameter equals 2. Okay. Then there comes the cylinder. So what this diameter is that it gives me the depth and the width of this puck. It's like a hockey puck. Okay, so all I need is the height. So I would then switch back to linear dimensions and give my extension lines, leaving space in between. I'm going to have arrows. Eighth inch lettering. And this should be construction weight lines, guys. Okay, I draw mine dark right now because I want to make sure that you can see it, but it should be construction weight. So light that I should have to like lean forward and squint. But that total height is 3/4, so that would be 0.75. Okay, so the thing is, you're going to want to make sure that you're giving all the major dimensions, the total height, total width, total depth, which is easy with a hockey puck. But as you're getting to the cylinders that have multiple layers to them, then you're going to have to start in with making sure that you're counting lines and so forth. I'm always going to be looking for your lettering guidelines. I'm going to be looking that your arrows are touching the surface but are pointing to the center point. Okay, so let's do another one together. It doesn't even, like I said, it doesn't matter if they're all going the same way or not. Okay, and with circles, this one's missing part of its center line. That will bug me, so I'm going to put in its center line. There you go. So with the circles, I'm going to kind of stagger it. You never want a leader line to be perfectly vertical or perfectly horizontal, because that angle will not stand out visually from your regular extension lines. That's why we have the angled line, is to draw attention to it. Okay, and so I'm going to go at a 30-degree angle for the outside one. Okay, and one thing that I have found works for me is to put in all of my extension lines and leader lines first, and then go back in and throw in the dimensions, just because it helps me keep organized. So what I typically do on a drawing is I go through and I put in all of this with the lines and such, and then I go in and take my measurements and put those down. But in order to make sure that I'm doing this correct with you, okay, this inner circle is 1 inch in diameter, so I give my diameter symbol first, and then a 1. The outside circle is 1.5, so diameter 1.5. Okay, now the thing is, I started using decimal inches instead of fraction inches on this handout, so now I need to stay consistent. Having a 0.75 and then a 1/2 up here is very confusing. It don't make somebody's brain jump back and forth. If you already are in the mindset of decimals, then keep the whole thing in decimals. Okay, if you're already in the mindset of fractions, then keep the whole section as fractions. And also keep in mind that your assignment handouts will usually tell you whether it should be decimals or fractions down in the bottom corner. Okay, so we're going to be using our extension lines. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3 height elevations, so that means I need 2 dimensions. One of them has to be the total, and one should be the smaller one. Guys and gals, one of the things you need to keep in mind is that it's easier to dimension to what is there, okay, to what's left versus what's cut away. So sometimes that would make life a little bit easier for the machinist if he sees the height of what that stepped piece still is. Now this space is going to be kind of small, but I can still fit both of my arrows and my dimension in there. So with all in, all out, I'm going to stay all in. Okay, keep in mind you got to keep your arrows small. Use 1/8 inch spacing. Okay, and these are linear dimensions, so you're not using the diameter. Only do diameter on the round pieces. So let's see here. This is 0.5 inches, and this is 1 inch. Now guys and gals, be careful with the 1 inch. If you have those arrows touching your lettering lines, then it will look like just a solid line. Okay, so you need to make sure that gap exists, or you might want to move the one out to the side just a wee bit. Not too much though. Okay, the final one. I see 1, 2, 3 circles, but this is a problem. One of the biggest rules, the biggest rule you'll ever hear from me is never, ever dimension to a hidden line. Don't do it. Not at all. Okay? So, only the first 2 circles, like the biggest and the smallest, can be dimensioned on this view. The larger one, even though we have a rule where you're supposed to dimension circles where they're shown as circles, that one will have to be done on a profile. Okay, so I'm going to get... I don't know why my center lines didn't photocopy well, but yikes. There we go. So I'm going to create my extension lines, my leader lines for my circles. Okay, make sure I have my arrows. That's one of the biggest things people forget is the arrows on their leader lines. Flatten out to horizontal. And the numbers go beside it, not on top of it, not underneath it. The numbers go right beside that horizontal bit of your leader line. Okay, and since they're circles, we're going to start with diameter. Take our measurement. 0.5. and 2. So to get this last diameter, we are going to use extension lines, and I'm going to create a little gap and extend those up. Okay, it's okay to have extension lines going through the actual object as long as you have that little gap that shows that it's an extension line. Okay. This lettering guide is going to be on your desk quite a bit this semester. Always use your lettering guide. So this has a diameter of 1.5, so 1.5. Okay. Then finally we put in our height information for our cylinders. So I'm going to start with making sure the largest one is furthest out, and I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 elevations, so I need 3 total. And I like to do datum, so starting from the same point, but you can do this one and this one if you want. Whatever it is that you feel like is best for your style of dimensioning, go ahead and do that. Okay, the thing is, there's more than one way to dimension most of the drawings that we will be dimensioning. As long as you're sticking to the rules and keeping organized and nice and neat, then you should be okay. Now keep in mind, eventually you will be drawing the drawings and then putting dimensions on for me. And the easiest way to ruin a beautiful drawing is by having horrible or ugly dimensioning. So make sure you keep with a nice clean single stroke vertical Gothic numbers and letters. Okay, stay organized, pay attention to your line type. Okay, so I'm again just keeping track of where my lines are going. This first one is 0.75. Then 1. Okay, for this one I fudged it off to the right so it would stand out. And then it's 1.5. Okay, there's one final piece of information that I want to show you. This hole, if you look at the hidden line, goes all the way through. You are going to, on many holes, need to put in depth information, which looks kind of like a little shovel. That equals depth. Okay. Now, since this one goes through, we don't have to give a depth 1.5. We can just write in THRU. Okay, it goes all the way through. However, if it only went down a half an inch, I would put the depth symbol next to the diameter of the circle and then 0.5 for the distance traveled. We'll get into the calling out depths in a lot more detail on a future assignment. I hope this made sense and good luck.